Listen to about March 2011, Tralian, Wall Street Invention, Chapman states that 2011 musically measures key signatures with a particular however, the keys of the piano, for example, are identified in marked sharps and flats. This is both hands. Chapman never introduced any evidence.
A musical deception. Emmett Chapman has referred to Tralian's patented method and teaching as being his own. It is a serious academic violation, especially when those credentials pertain to an invention of music that's published in history books and encyclopedias in the name of the one who did not invent the art. According to the United States Patent Office, Chapman is not the inventor or discoverer of a unique new method or playing on a fretted stringed instrument, and this has been backed up by the USPTO's legal event. His entire method patent of 4 claims were re-examined and revoked by the USPTO in 1983, found obvious to the conventional art. Chapman had made a national public performance on a broadcast of What's My Line, a popular TV game show in 1974. The method shown was tapping on a fretboard resembling a plank of wood that he called a stick, which measured the board for only one hand, as all other fretboards did, where the hands played simultaneous melody and chords independently of one another. In Chapman's abstract, there is a first group of melody-tuned strings and a second group of bass and chord strings. The strings of the first group are tapped by the fingers of the right hand, and the strings of the second group are tapped by the fingers of the left hand. The fingers of both hands are used to tap bass, chords, and melody simultaneously. 4 claims, 7 drawing figures. Holding the fretboard in a slightly elevated position did not change the conventional method, only the posture. This made Chapman believe that he had discovered a new method, which was actually a delusion. There is no first person to angle a fretboard upright. Instruments such as the pipa, a Chinese instrument, had been held horizontal and then upright for centuries, did not change the method of playing the instrument. And the ancient fretted viols were bowed, being held upright, did not change the method of the violin, which is the same method as the cello, where both are held in a different position, still does not change the method of playing the instruments. Guitars placed upon the lap of the players instead of being held horizontally does not change the method of the guitar, and even angling a piano's keyboard differently by holding it sideways, standing up, does not change the method of playing the instrument. So the thought of playing a fretboard angled slightly upward did nothing to change the method of tapping. Yet, even after the USPTO's decision of 1983, Chapman regardless went on to proclaim his so-called freehands method. But proclaiming his so-called discovery of a new method had to be substantiated with a new system of music, not just holding one's hands in a different manner or tapping independently with both hands. Chapman had to describe a method that was unconventional and not his own. In a world of guitar players who were tapping years before him, regardless of how they held a fretboard, as evidenced by Jimmy Webster's 1952 booklet entitled The Illustrated Touch System, Chapman wanted a new method to justify his claims of discovering a new musical dimension, other than changing his tuning or adding more strings or angling his fretboard. So he decided to use the description and elements of a new patented method of playing a fretted stringed instrument that was granted to Tralian. Tralian was granted a unique blue ribbon pioneer methodology patent that described and measured the fretboard for 2 interlaced hands similar to the piano, which new method appears in ongoing publications as Chapman's newly discovered unique method of using interlaced hands. It reads, Emmett Chapman's unique 2-handed tapping method connects the musician more powerfully and more intimately to a stringed instrument than ever before. With both hands as equal partners on the fretboard, each hand can play independent lines, or the 2 hands can work in concert to form interlaced arrangements. And this article, amongst many that are dispensating the same deception all over the internet that link directly back into Chapman's site, This one from Guitar International reads, "Thus, the stick was born. Chapman had discovered a musical space similar to the one occupied by pianists, which interweaving voices, multiple melodic lines, and free-winging improvisation with chordal accompaniment is standard fare." Chapman's conventional methodology, revocation, when examined from top to bottom, is completely devoid of Tralian's method and knowledge. But since Tralian's method was the definitive answer for Chapman to disguise his failure, he claimed it as his method. This way, if there was any doubt that he had invented a new method, that doubt would soon be erased, as Chapman would now appear to have anticipated Tralian's method. This made it very difficult for Tralian to communicate his historical achievement in the midst of Chapman's deception. And the situation became worse when, as a result of Chapman's deception, Tralian, the United States Patent Office, intellectual property attorneys, and patent examiners have all been mocked and looked down upon with disdain, evidenced by words written by musicians who play Chapman's stick, taken from Chapman's own archives. The date was Monday, the 12th, January 2009, wherein a musician wrote in Chapman's forum, "I ask anyone reading this to go to that link that has the patent filing. Read it, look at the pictures, and wow, if that's how all patents read, then I do not want to be a patent lawyer." The fifth picture has the person holding and playing the flutar. The instrument's position and hand positions, whether or not the fact that instrument has only 6 strings, looks exactly like how you hold and play a stick. And he goes on, "I'm sorry. Just because 3 non-musical judges, who I will bet my left nut couldn't tell a G string on a guitar from a thong, say Gary Egan came up with the idea of two-handed integrated playing first and gave him a patent, doesn't make it truthful. He just got a patent for it."
Tralian's pioneer methodology states, "All stringed instruments have one thing in common. That is, the fretboard musically measures the key signatures with a dot. However, the keys of the piano, for examples, are identified as markers for sharps and flats, so that both hands share a relationship in coordination, linking one to the other. In the two-handed techniques of the prior art, the two hands do not move in the relationship of the pianist's hands. Thus, no stringed instrument has been designed to provide a relationship where the two hands become one appendage, both moving fluidly together as one scale and one chord, in that no stringed instrument has provided a visual means to locate the placement of the fingers of the hands in a two-hand playing technique." And in Tralian's abstract, he states this teaching, "Approaching the strings with the fingers of one hand from one side of the fingerboard and with the fingers of the other hand from the other side of the fingerboard, and tapping, bending, and pulling at least one of the strings along the length of the fingerboard with the fingers of both hands by applying the fingers of the other hand in advance of the position of the one hand, and then applying the fingers of the other hand again in a position in advance of the position of the other hand in either direction." Now listen to a March 2nd, 2011 interview with Emmett Chapman.
Later, when I started producing the stick, the first productions in 1974, I finished a book, an instruction book, chapter by chapter, and I called it Free Hands. So that's the name of my particular form of two-handed tappings, free hands, where the hands are equal partners. They come at right angles, they fit between the frets, and they're perpendicular to the strings, and each hand can play like a piano. But it is as if you came around the piano keyboard from the other side and played the piano like this. So what happens then is the fingers are identical. It's not a visual instrument, it's a kinesthetic, tactile instrument. It equates to something that I like to use as an example. If you want to sign your name with both hands, you can do it, just rote, just sign the letters, or you can do it by feel and write backwards, mirror image with your left hand. Well, I'm a mirror image guy. That to me will give a better execution of my signature or a sentence that I'm writing than if I do it in the same direction. So, you know, we're caught in sensory beings. We're caught in that. We're visual creatures, you know. Keyboard is very compelling. It's a row of switches, of keys. But there's another side to us that is split down the middle and thinks spatially and kinesthetically. So that's the appeal of the stick, I think, and also the appeal of a guitar. It's just a different kind of a beast.
Now, according to the above teaching that was granted to Tralian from the USPTO, Chapman states in this 2011 interview that, quote, "My particular form of two-handed tapping is that each hand can play like a piano, where the fingers are identical. This is false. Chapman never produced any evidence to the USPTO or even playing the instrument kinetically on What's My Line in 1974 to show the method of the piano. All guitar fretboards chromatically measure the board for one hand, the same of which Chapman is included, as he measured the fretboard for one hand, which was no different than any other guitar's fretboard, whether it was held slightly higher or not. And any guitar's fretboard can enable a blindfolded player to move in the relationship of the piano kinetically if the knowledge were there. But that thought did not originate with Chapman, as he originally stated in his failed method application, which was obvious to the USPTO that it was guitar tapping methodology and not the piano's, and that was the thought of his instrument as he performed the guitar methodology on What's My Line in 1974. Chapman mentions Tralian's method in his speech pertaining to markings, clearly shows that Chapman was aware of Tralian's method. Except the discovery of playing the fretboard like a piano did not occur to Chapman. Tralian proved the piano's method to the USPTO by tangibly marking the board and playing the fretboard like a piano kinetically for the first time on TV, because the teaching of Tralian's method, whether one's eyes were open or shut, does not remove, undo, discredit, or refute the original thought that Chapman's method did not teach or realize.